Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we will be having another interesting topic, which is protecting ethics and integrity upfront. The next panelist and moderator will discuss on facing fraud, corruption, and cybercrime in unprecedented times. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to invite on the stage our panelists. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Muhammad Zamri Zainul Abidin, Director Anti-Money Laundering Division Malaysia AMLA, Mr. Hon Foon Ping, Cyber Security Industry Expert, Technologist Dr. Salahuddin Samsudin, Cyber Security Industry Expert, and the moderator to lead the discussion is Puan Khadijah Iskandar, Financial Institutions Expert, ELMU Group. Please welcome. Puan Khadijah, over to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to all. A warm welcome to the second session for today's discussion with the topic of protecting ethics and integrity up front. My name is Khadijah Iskandar. I will be the moderator for this session. I think for today's session, the time cannot be more ideal than today to talk about this topic with the recent release of the Corruption Perception Index. It was mentioned earlier as well, where the Corruption Perception Index for Malaysia has actually has been on a declining trend for the past 3 years. Primarily, none other due to the 1MDB scandal, right? And although the Corruption Perception Index is to measure perception of the private sectors, to measure perception of the public service of a country, banks have also been implicated in the process because the involvement of the banking transactions, right? So today, we are privileged to have with us Deputy Commissioner Datuk Muhammad Zamri Zainul Abidin, who is from MACC, and Datuk Zamri is also a department director, director for, let me check the details first, director for AMLA MACC. So Datuk Zamri is actually the man who was involved in, who was leading the investigation of 1MDB. So I'm sure he has a lot to share with us and we can gain some insight on his sharing after this. And another development in the recent past, I think in a few weeks, that get everybody excited. Many people actually, including those with bad and good intention, with the launch of the ChatGPT. So the advancement in technology with the use of chatbots and AI is, of course, necessary in this digital era. And these tools can also be used actually to fight corruption and fraud. However, at the same time, on the rise is actually the threat from cybercrime as well as fraud. And to talk more on the topics, we have actually two specialists from the industry as well as from Cyber Security Malaysia. We are honored to have with us Mr. Hon Foon Ping and technologist Dr. Salahuddin bin Samsudin joining the discussion. The second speaker, Mr. Hon Foon Ping, is a cyber security expert from the IT industry. Mr. Hon is a CEO and founder of NetAssist Group, a cyber security service provider. Mr. Hon has more than 26 years of experience as a cyber security specialist who advocates practical and innovative approaches to help various organizations in establishing cyber resilience. The third speaker, Dr. Salahuddin bin Samsudin, Chief Technology Officer of Cyber Security Malaysia. Dr. Salahuddin has been in the cybersecurity industry and with Cybersecurity Malaysia for more than 20 years. He has extensive knowledge, experience, and skills in cybersecurity domains. And I'm sure that by now, everyone is eager to listen to what each of the speakers has to share with us from their perspective and experience. Before we begin, for round one, each speaker will be given 10 minutes to present their ideas. So the format is slightly different from the initial session. And the timekeeper, please watch out for the timekeeper who will give you guys signal 2 minutes before your time is up. And thereafter, there will be moderated questions as well as questions from the audience. Before we begin, I would like to highlight upfront that there's a high probability that this session may exceed 40 minutes, the allocated time of 40 minutes. But I do not think any of you would want to miss any part of the discussion in such an interesting topic. In any case, we will try to end the session no later than 12:30. Yeah? So without further ado, may I invite Datuk Muhammad Zamri to start the presentation, please? Thanks, Datuk.
Assalamualaikum dan selamat pagi, moderator. Saya ada 10 minit lah. Saya prepare 40 slide. Slide dah on lah. So just now while I listening to the session, I just put up some points. It's important that for me to thank you for AIBIM first, just to convey directly, because kita ada 10 minutes, what my view on the... First of all, I think the bank, in terms of money laundering regime, is doing very well. I think we'll seldom hear there's some problem with the bank, about integrity and so on. There's some bank that we investigated, I think recently is known to everybody, is related to the state bank, not the commercial bank. I think bank is working well. I think whatever product, whatever regime that been implemented is work well, especially the money laundering platform. Okay, for ML division, I think we have about 2 or 3 times program with the bank annually. Normally, I work with a Kong, so I would like to open up for AIBIM members or whatever it is, we can facilitate the typology and so on. The private-public partnership is another critical area whereby the bank can facilitate. We have a program similar like in UK called GIMLET, where the bank we share what crime, specific target, the bank go back to look at your database, then you will trigger through STR. So from the STR, then the law enforcement like us will get the information. So we have done that with some bank, top 10 bank. I think we selected, I can't remember my bank, CMB, M-Bank. So we're doing that. I think some of you probably already heard all this product. So the point is, I think among the key thing that the bank have to see, just now the Deputy Governor talked about national crime risk. It's about the whole process. It's no longer about the specific crime. You look at the drug, organized crime, corruption, fraud. If you look at just that particular offense, then that one will become like a specific issue. When you address that, you will think that, hey, this is related to smuggling, not related to corruption. When you look at this and that, you tend to narrow down your scheme, your mind, and then how you're going to fight against this crime. But importantly, you have to look at how the drug can penetrate the country. Or you're talking about smuggling, how the thing can be smuggled out. That's where the issue about bankers, accountant, lawyer, company secretary, that's why these people, we call it enabler. The name called enabler, not to say enabler in a good way or bad way. Why I'm saying that it's very important to let the bankers, or in this case the bankers, financial institution people, need to know the trend. You may see it's just a company at offshore or company doing business in sea. But you have to understand what happened in sea. For example, there's a ship come from Dubai, park at the Johor port. So they park somewhere there. Then there's a ship will go and support, provide water, provide some service. But there's also certain thing can happen. Drug can be smuggled, human trafficking, cash can be transit. So there's many things can happen. That's why the point that I want to make, when you raise the STR, you need to be careful. Look a little bit more. Is this company is related to certain industry? So you may want to ask that question. So that's why in our discussion with the bank or during the Kong meeting, we will highlight this. It's very important. People like in compliance, people like the branch manager, that quite close to this group, they need to know this. Because we can't really, all the while because if you look at how the fraud been detected or corruption been detected, not everything based on the analysis. Most of it based on the tipping off. So we can get a good information from the bankers through STR, like my Deputy Chief Commissioner mentioned about the STR. So that is very crucial. Nanti moderator kena beritahu. So illegal scheme, like recently they arrested the Kutu thing, right? Yesterday or 2 days before. So it's not about just the guy being arrested. How the scheme can be managed to penetrate to Malaysian culture. So who are the operator? Like for example, you are the bankers. Can you move to another field? To become engineer? To become a business maybe can. Because people in that field, we move also in the similar field. Let's say this is called the enabler. Let's say these people penetrate to illegal scheme. Maybe you didn't arrest them, you just arrest people that maybe the last tier or the third tier, the first tier still able to do it. That's why when I talk about a chain of information, the analysis, this is the crime. You need to look at these people, not just conservatively you look at, who commit the crime. Then the rest you make it become witness. So these people will again do the same thing. So the important to look at the people that the head of the hierarchy of this criminal syndicate. Okay, this is an illegal scheme. For example, the cryptocurrency, same thing. The crypto is very critical. Just now we talked about bank. Now the bank also, sometimes there is no more bank, the physical bank, the digital bank. So that's why in this field, so whether the crypto being used to launder the fund, receive bribe payment, take illegal payment for drug. So because criminal, also like us, they got advisor, client wealth manager. Some people they say client wealth. Some people say what? Leverage banking. Many names. But most of it doing in a good faith. But sometimes it also need to advise certain group by knowing the tainted fund. Right? Grand corruption. Just now, my chief commissioner talked about the scammer thing. In Malaysia, most of the scammer is quite straightforward. Maybe love scam, 1 million maximum, 500,000. But bear in mind, Malaysia is becoming a hub for a scammer from the foreign jurisdiction. But the victim actually is outsiders. I think we did share a little bit with some bankers. What happened is they based in Malaysia, using all the leverage in Malaysia facilities, and scam those people in UK, Australia, Europe, and US. Many ways. So it's not just attract foreign investment in terms of the right investment, it's also attract the scammer to invest. What happened, because we smart, we have to think how to move on, you see. Malaysian people start to adopt, to also become a scammer. But these people high-level scammer. How the money transact from, for example, from UK, pay directly to the Malaysian account. Then after that, just a mule account, the money later on transact and then transit for about 1 or 2 days, then go to another country, then come back through another cash courier. So that's why sometimes normal, that's why when you talk about money laundering, the design is very interesting. It's very unique. Placement, layering, it's simple integration. But these people, the criminal, they always find a way how to beat the system. That's why the issue of cash smuggling. They bring in cash. That's why I mentioned about the C thing. I won't follow my topic. It's better I talk like this. But I have 10 minutes. Okay? So that's why I'm talking about the scammer. Grand corruption. Tapi nanti nak tunjuk slide. Belum tak? The grand corruption. Okay. Grand corruption, you look just now, Miss Moderator talk about
Khadijah.
apa tu? 1 NDB. Let me show you one slide. Somehow or other I like to put this slide. You think, what happened to Malaysia? Okay. When you talk about 1 NDB, people 1 NDB. When talk about CPI, people talk about CPI. But do you know the content of the CPI survey? What is the ingredient? Who are the point or who basically will be addressing the issue of the survey? Is it MACC? Is it related to corruption? So, but I will show you one. Can I get the?
Yeah, I think we need.
Yeah, just that one.
We need to show something on the slide, right? Are you, Dato'?
Yeah.
This.
MACC work on the corruption and corruption-related offences. So we will investigate corruption cases. Most of the cases that we start with is corruption cases. But along the way, if let's say it result to, we call it corruption-related offences, it can be fraud. So that's why sometimes we also investigate fraud cases. Private sector, most of private sector, it will be more related to the fraud case, corruption-related offences. Right. The last one, before I go there, I don't have time. For AMLA regime, if you see for the past 4 years, we have a structuring offences. So the bank, we have charged, we initiate one individual being charged on structuring. That means when they deposited, the money is going by the below threshold. So the bank, sometimes you have automated system, sometimes you have manual system, you have to look into that as well. They want to beat. Nowadays, I think the threshold is what? 10,000? 25?
25,000.
25,000, right. But 10,000, they already pre-alert. In 10,000 and 25. Some people put 24,500. So all this is trying to beat, but the amount is quite small. But sometimes there will be a pattern. So for me, it's like this type of exploring the new thing. Second thing, when the evolution of crime, I think those days in MAC 1967, we are about 55, we start off with straightforward. When people get involved in corruption, we charge these people. After that, I think the money laundering law be implemented in 2001. People already start to look at the proceeds of crime. But now, when you talk about way forward, FCPA, UK Bribery Act, I think Malaysia corporate liability, most of it talking about the asset recovery. So that's why when you talk about asset recovery, you talk about proceeds of crime, banking transaction is very crucial. How to recover the asset if we cannot tie the issue of corruption or the issue of fraud, illegal activity, illegal scheme to the proceeds of crime. So that's why the cooperation from bankers is very critical for us to get this information. Let me go to the slide.
The slide. You have 2 minutes left, Dato'. Sorry about it.
Not this one, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to show, okay, this is the, this is the international passport. Later on, I think the moderator will ask you question.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody will run from this. You look at anybody will talk about obtain, they will have, you will know the fraud triangle. When people want to commit crime, I didn't read a lot of books. I listen a lot. My background is I'm an engineer by profession with Hewlett Packard. Among the things that I've been taught earlier my age, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits. I not really have many things, whatever books, whatever, but I based on Stephen Covey thing. Basically, when people want to commit something, they rationalize. Hey, I do crime, cannot. Ethic. It's not something where like, most of the people talking about want to good things. But how they deviate? Oh, this one, because I want to help my company. I want to help my company. So they rationalize. That's why fraud can happen, corruption can happen. So then after that, it becomes something like a culture or become habit. Habit, you can invite me, we can talk about this more. So basically, obtain as much money as possible. Then after get a lot of money, how to spend? Next, definitely need to hide. Hide. Then the rest, not spend. The spending, they got caught. So this is the concept, how people commit whatever crime, whatever. This is the thing I'm talking about, the simple corruption. Last time, 1967, 50s, 70. Straightforward. Little bit complicated using mistress, family members, good friend. After that, start company, offshore, blah, blah, blah. Then jurisdiction, YNDB. So when you look at the crime and evolve, is the enforcement evolve? How about the bankers' facility evolve? Reality to combat this type of crime. The focus no longer about the people that commit the crime, the whole chain. Like as now, I think Mr. from cybercrime we're talking about what is it? The one you can type. Even now they beat the Google already. The share price going down Google after he launched that one.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Okay, I just want to go straight to the one slide. People talk about YNDB. This one, YNDB. You aware about all this scandal? How much money being paid? FCPA order one company, Keppel, subsidiary of Temasek. 422 million. Is it being reported? He got the good CPI. Pay bribe about 55 million. So I don't want to comment, but that is a reality. So moderator, that's all. I wait for the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will have more session after this. We can post questions to Dato' Zamri after this. But it's interesting when you talk about CPI. Normally, there's a research. Actually, there's an article written where the one with the best CPI index is the one actually who is abusing the one with the worst index. So, okay. So, without further ado, also, then can we invite Mr. Hon Fan Ping to talk about cyber crime?
Very fast.
10 minutes. It's okay. You can.
I
1 or 2 minutes.
slides.
Okay.
But, okay. In fact, we just celebrate our Chinese New Year. And a lot of people will talk about the horoscope, the luck of the year. But actually, I think more importantly is to look around to see whether is there any data being leaked out in the place of dark web. Why? Because a lot of fraud, cyber criminals started by someone leaking out data somehow through the people, process, and technology. The weakness is there. So how do people call you and suddenly they know everything about you, and then they pretend like some officer, some authority, and making you believe? How do they get those data? Of course, some people got it from social media, but based on our record, it shows that a lot of time data will leak out without you knowing in the dark web. So understanding about what dark web is very crucial. Today, I'll just start the initial introduction only. So hopefully after this, that brings you some awareness. Dark web is a place that is a full economy. One doesn't have to be a cybersecurity expert. You don't need to be a talent genius to be a hacker to do cyber criminals. In fact, Allianz groups actually did their own research because they are insurance companies, so they want to know what is the business risk. Among all these, people talk about inflation, climate change, change of government. All these are business risks, but at the end of the day, on top of it, unfortunately, still cybercrime. So, and there's another fact that we actually find it very interesting. Many people buy insurance for their office, for theft, for fire, all risk insurance. Businessmen do that. But not many people know that you are 15 times more likely to get cybercrime, cyber fraud than the fire and the theft. So this is a new information that we need to make available to the public, how critical it is to have to have some cybercrime prevention. 3 out of 4 mobile applications that you can download, they can pretend like someone like WhatsApp, which we have seen it very often. And many of them, when they build their mobile application, they will actually very rush into delivering function without very much about the security of it. Which is why you probably heard from time to time the news. How come these people, they can have hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollars being transferred online without receiving OTP? How come they did not get any one-time password? Simply because some of these people, they download some applications which they believe is fun, is secure, and these are the applications which we have seen it can take over your mobile phone without you knowing, and doing some of the registration for one-time password without you knowing. So at the end of the day, a few days later or a few months later, you start to realize that, hey, where is all my money gone? How come the bank do all this transfer without telling me the OTP? There is, in fact, banks actually send you OTP, but it's just that your mobile phone has been compromised. So, and a lot of employees say, okay, these are nothing to do with me. Some of the bosses only losing money. But as an employee as well, which we need to highlight to you, once your organization has been compromised with cyber threat, cyber data leakage, very often those companies may also need to incur layoff. Some of the C-level will be asked to resign. So that comes back personally, it also affects you. Cybercrime doesn't only affect the business owner or the asset owner. You as an employee may be affected. Imagine if you download an application, maybe a bank ABC. Suddenly this bank say, hey, sorry, I accidentally leaked our data. I think you will actually start losing confidence. You try not to use that bank anymore. So that is the fact. If your supplier suddenly tells you, sorry, I accidentally leaked your data, I guess you'll be very angry and you start thinking that, I don't do business with you. Why? Because now, maybe all my competitors know all my confidential information about the goods that I buy, the stocks, the volume. So then people, when it comes to cybercrime, immediately people think, oh, okay, I got firewall. True. Firewall has done a great job until today, even some AI. Blocking some of the bad guys trying to come into a network, they have done a great job. However, how come there's still so many crime happening? Even some of the big organizations who have millions of dollars firewalls. The biggest problem is that firewall, until today, by design, doesn't really do much on any activity that initiated from within. So whenever there's an activity initiated by your internal staff trying to talk to outside, your firewall usually will let it go. Especially today, it's all encrypted. And that explains why, exactly the reason. Phishing is the top threat. Why? Because hackers also know. The best way for me to hack you is to send some kind of email. Looks like Burger King free voucher. And someone will just click on it. And that activity then initiated by your internal staff. And that's the best way for me to hack you. Easy, straightforward. So whatever I talk about is at the end of the day, is the human, is the weakest link. And we actually strongly encourage, do give a lot of awareness to your staff, to your friends around, the importance of cyber threat. And of course, the best way to learn, sometimes in fact, or I believe some of the banks start doing it, actually they even actually have this thing called cyber drill. You have fire drill to know that when things happen, which exit point, where is the gathering point, don't use the lift. So these are the things. But have you really done a cyber drill? Probably you need to do it. Because one of the best ways to learn the lesson is to experience the attack. Of course, it's a simulated one. Another statistic I'd like to highlight, this is the latest one, 2022. Within one single year, there are more than 60,000 of threats being available, not including those. That means that every 8 minutes, there are new ways that's available for the hackers to take advantage of and to hack you. All this while I've been talking about the data that you can Google from the internet. NetAssist ourselves actually also do some research. And quite consistently, we found that most of the time, our own customer, a big chunk of it, thousands of cases of it, are all compromised due to phishing. At the end of the day, yes, there are a lot of complicated technique to hack you. But at the end of the day, let's start from the most simple one, the phishing. Understanding how a phishing looks like. How come? Because until today, many of us are still using the same password for everything else. Imagine that if someone have a leak of the data on the Facebook and they're able to get your ID and password, they have more than 50% chance to use the same ID and password to log in to your company email, to your whatever banking login. Then they can do a lot of funny things on you. So which is why then people, of course, every now and then hear about new trend. This thing is called zero trust. Actually, zero trust is not something new. It's been around since 2010, 12, 13 years ago. So, what I'm trying to say is that all this while, the idea is there, we need to actually do something to learn about it. Of course, what we notice in the market is that most of people already start getting tired. Every now and then hear a new thing. The latest one is zero trust. Before that, sandboxing. Before that, a lot of new technology, data leakage prevention, anti-hacking solutions. So at the end of the day, the phenomena is that even the IT managers do not believe in technologies. I think that is quite normal. So at the end of the day, what we do is that based on the various experience we have, fraud happen not because alone in technology. Yes, it happened there, but fraud also happen when there is weakness in human, when there's weakness in your business process. So to counter that, a total holistic strategy on that involve people, process, and technology can help you. At the end of the day, it goes back to a very basic idea. It's not complicated. At the end of the day, whatever that you do, ask these simple 3 questions. What is going to happen to the confidentiality of the data, the integrity of the data, and the availability of the data? All this you can easily find Google in the internet. So I do not want to go into detail, but just try to summarize it, actually highlight that these are things that we can look into. Or to make it even simpler, apply it back to your respective HOD. Ask the questions about what if there is fire, what if there is flood, or people hack you, or there's virus. What is going to happen to your operation? Then from there, let's find out the risk. And of course, the data doesn't really only focus on those that in your server, in your cloud. There are data with your people. There are data physically in the file. What is going to happen to that? So these are questions that you can ask. From there, you can easily identify what are the highest risks. The risk that most likely to happen, and when it does happen, it is fatal. So with that, then because money is never enough, allocate your budget into things that is most fatal, most possible to happen. Do not be driven by any vendor to tell you a particular technology that can help you. We have seen, and you probably also heard, there is a lot of white elephant being implemented. Ended up, you spend a lot of money, but it didn't use. Why? For the same reason. So a gap assessment on priority, ended up, for all you know, you probably doesn't need to spend $1, but yet your cybersecurity can be improved slightly, can be improved better sometimes. So of course, when it comes to all these risks, doesn't really need to necessarily, hey, buy some technology. There are other ways. Maybe avoid it by not doing it. Of course, mitigate by putting some technology, some process. Or maybe today people talk about cyber insurance. You probably can pay some money to the insurance guy. Hey, I pay you this money. When things happen, you pay me back. So these are the risks that you can transfer to them. Or eventually, if the risk is not big enough, probably you can put in some mechanism to accept it. So these are the last few slides. A lot of people like to, every time they talk to cybersecurity guy, they always like to give almost the same advice to say, hey, patch your system. I guess you've been hearing this repeatedly until you get boring about it. Patch your system. But I like to actually highlight to you that when your system already being compromised, patching your system may not be the right thing to do. In fact, that's why a lot of people start talking about, hey, I think let's assume we are already being breached. How? How do I know that? Of course, I think Bank Negara has done a great job. Bank Negara is asking all the financial institutions at least to do one round of compromise assessment to know how badly or am I already compromised. Probably that is the most important thing to do instead of patching a system. Patch is important, but before that, let's find out, am I already be compromised? So these are typical the things that people do, which unfortunately it makes you tired, spend a lot of money, and become not efficient. So, and another statistic that we got from Gartner, people has been putting a lot of resources, money, energy into all these operational things, security operations, or staff management. But cybersecurity can be an enabler. Cybersecurity can help you to do bigger business, do international business, to enable transformation. What we were actually lacking is that we actually under-invest when it comes to the understanding of technologies, so that you can talk to your stakeholders, talk to your strategy planning, and do something different uniquely as a differentiator compare. Whatever I'm saying is not my idea. It's an intention. It's a global trend now. A lot of people are talking about, just now you talk about enabler. It's true. Cybersecurity can be enabler. People in every way other in the world are putting budget as enabling budget. Cybersecurity budget is not only a defensive budget to prevent things. It can enable you to do more things. So, of course, we are having serious shortage of talent. I purposely put up this slide to tell everybody, especially authority, help us. We need help on cybersecurity talent. Yep. In fact, even the cyber criminals themselves are doing outsourcing or crowdsourcing. You probably heard about Lockbit. Lockbit is one of the ransomware. They have Lockbit 1, Lockbit 2. Those being cracked, they have bugs inside. So people are able to actually crack them, and ended up the criminal doesn't make a lot of money. So what they do, when they come to Lockbit 3, they issue, in fact, I was told, up to $1 million for those people who can find the bugs in the Lockbit ransomware. Why? To make sure that their Lockbit is very strong, very harmful, and no one can crack it, and so that they can make a lot of money. So sharing economy is happening in the cyber criminal underground world. We strongly advocate, how about let's talk about sharing our economy, let's share resources, let's counter the cyber attack together, putting the resources together. So with that, I'd like to end my sharing presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hon. Thank you very much. So you can, after listening to the presentation, then you can appreciate the life of the bankers. Yeah? They are actually faced with the unprecedented challenges. So maybe now they're not so boring after all. They have to be interesting to fight all these cyber crimes, which is actually like the virtual criminals after all. Yeah. Then to hear more on the cyber security, I would like to invite our technologist, Dr. Salahuddin bin Shamsuddin.
Okay, terima kasih saudari pengurusi majlis. Ya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, since a lot of things have been covered by Mr. Hon, I think just go through very quickly because we have a lot of time. Okay, let's look at the current fraud and cybercrime landscape, especially in the banking financial sectors. Yeah, okay. Yes, we are now in a very digital world today, and every aspect of our life is somehow or other has been connected, influenced by the digital technology. Yeah, you look at there are a lot of technologies out there about the blockchain, the cloud computing, AI, machine learning, things like that, and IoTs, a lot of this, so that the convergence of technologies will add more complexities to the cyberspace. Yeah, talking about Web3 and metaverse as well. Okay, but digital transformation is not without risk. It's always risk. Okay, technology such as wireless technology has changed the way we conduct our business, offering workers with constant access to businesses, critical applications, and data. While this facility is convenient and expands productivity, it introduces complexity and security risks as these new technology and devices become new target for hackers looking to infiltrate a corporate network. Yeah, and consequently, cyber attacks may have physical consequences as well, as we have seen in a few slides there. It had a few incidents where it have a cost to the physical consequences as well. Yeah. And then look at the global risk 2023 by World Economic Forum report. Yeah, you can see that the 2 years and 10 years risk, the cybercrime also were there, cybercrime and then cyber insecurity, also widespread cybercrime in both. Yeah, and then as we know that the more we are interconnected to the cyberspace, the more we are at risk to cyber threats, yeah? And we know there are a lot of threat actors out there, yeah, from pranksters to cyber threats, activists, cyber criminals, nation state to cyber terrorism. A lot of things happening, a lot of threat actors out there, so we have to be very, very careful. And cyber threats is becoming more active and evolving. And this is the 2022 Global Cyber Attack Trends by Sonic Wall. Yeah, you can see that the top 3 on about encrypted threats, ransomware attacks, also cryptojacking attacks. Yeah, a lot of things have been encrypted, so you need to have proper tools to decrypt it. Okay, or else you wouldn't be able to see this the threats coming. Yeah. And as we know that the more we're integrated, the more we're exposed. There are a lot of things happening around the world, globally. Yeah, actually, it's always the trend is always there. As we know that the cyber world is borderless. Okay, what's happening on the other side of the world? We always come here in Malaysia. Okay, cyber crimes occurs everywhere, even in Malaysia. Yeah, so we have had our fair share of cyber crimes. So there's a lot of things happening, yeah, in our environment, yeah. There's like a Macau scam is very, very, very common and very rampant now. Okay, a lot of people, professionals, lost a lot of money out of this scam, even though it's happening every day, and it seems like a lot of people's not taking lesson. You just gotta comprehend that, yeah. Okay. Financial sectors are more prone to be targeted compared to other sectors because it's more the data will be more profitable to the threat actors, yeah? Especially whether it's at the surface web or in the surface web or in the dark web. Okay, especially in the dark web. Yeah. And this is the cyber incidents referred to Cybersecurity Malaysia for the past 12 years. Yeah, as you know. We, Cybersecurity Malaysia, we operate Cyber 999, a call center for any cyber incidents. People can report to us. We have had about 9 types of incidents, from intrusion attempt, DOS, fraud, cyber harassment, spam, related vulnerabilities report and malicious codes. But the top 4 in Malaysia is always fraud, malicious code, intrusion, and content related. Yeah. And there's a lot of type of frauds happening, yeah, that we have recorded in Cybersecurity Malaysia, like bogus email, business BEC, yeah, the business email compromise, fraud site, impersonation, and spoofing, job scam, lottery scam, love and parcel scam, phishing, yeah. But as Mr. Hon said, the highest number also is phishing, and then followed by the fraud side. And this is the impact of cyber attacks on critical infrastructures, including the financial sectors. Firstly, we need there can disrupt operations, the business and supplies, disrupt the business itself. It can even threat the safety of workers and citizens. We had, of course, financial loss, will impact revenue, reputational damage, litigation or regulatory consequences, and will bring the economy to a halt, which may cause public disturbances and civil unrest. And lastly, weaken country's government and essential services, and in turn become vulnerable to internal and external threats and attacks. Yeah. And take a look at some of the cybersecurity case studies that we've had, we've experienced in Malaysia, and a lot of things have been reported to Cyber 999. And this is one example of the APT attacks, yeah, facing the financial organizations, where in this case, they were looking for compromised vulnerable servers, firstly, and then start target exploit the vulnerabilities and pivot to Swift servers and transfer the fund and destroy the evidence. That's a normal MO. Modus operandi is done by the threat actors. Yeah, it's just some example. Recently, we have heard about PNG e-wallet user scam, yeah, reportedly to help B40 and M40 families targeting e-wallet users. It's becoming very rampant now. There are a lot people, especially this happened during the um, during the COVID-19 before this, pandemic. Yeah, a lot of people got very very hard time. A lot of people need no money, and people really get duped into this kind of scam. Yeah, and we see that like another scam attack. Yeah, microtransactions applications, fake winning contest by Shopee. Yeah, and let's look at the cybersecurity in a holistic approach. Yeah, these are some of the measures that organization can take to strengthen the organizations. We talk about defense in depth, zero trust approach, as mentioned by Mr. Horn just now. You have to put proper security mechanism in place, firewall, anti-malware software, patch management. You have to do proper security awareness and training. As we know, people is the weakest link. Okay, you have to have like a multi-factor authentication and implementing good security policy. You have to have BYOD policy in place, regularly backup and sort on that. And lastly, be alert and cautious. Look and think before you think. Yeah, these are some of the measures.
2 minutes left.
Okay, I think I can make use of these 2 minutes. Protecting from evolving cyber threats. Yeah. Okay, I just skip that one. And then how to prevent human errors. These are the things that we can do. We need to update the security policy. Need to educate the employees, monitor employee activity, and enforce the principles of these privileges. Yeah, PULP. And then everybody is responsible. Cybersecurity does not operate in silo. The management must show the example by leading organization in enhancing the cybersecurity. Yeah, especially the C-suite, or the board level, you have to be lead by example. Yeah, and cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. It's not the executive, not the employee, or not the IT people. It's everybody's responsibility. Everybody has a fair share on the cybersecurity responsibility. That's why in Cybersecurity Malaysia, we always suggest or propose that it's good to have for organization to be certified by baseline ISMS, okay, ISO 2701. But the scope must be the whole organization, not just not just data center, not just certain scope, small scope. It has to be the whole organization because it will cover the whole set of employees, from the receptions to the top CEOs. So, okay, that's why I think everyone have a shared responsibility. Yeah. And then in conclusion, there is no such thing as 100% security. Okay. There is no silver bullet in security. Okay. There's still much improvement to be made. We need to increase and strengthen our cybersecurity manpower and professional skills. And there is a need to ensure for a secure, resilient, and trusted cyber environment in order to sustain progression and prosperity. And in this regard, a more innovative and proactive adaptive security approach is required to address such situations. And adaptive security encompasses predictive, detective, responsive, and proactive capabilities. Okay, with that, I thank you. That's the time what I have, yeah?
Thank you, Doctor. I think if I can summarize, I think what's relevant for the banks, you can see now how financial sectors are actually the main target for the cybercrime, yeah? And how that there won't be any 100% so-called protection, yeah? So the more the banks actually need to be vigilant. Okay, so I think in the next session, we will open for questions, but let me start first by posing question to our first panelist, yeah? Datuk Muhammad Zamri. I know you mentioned about Keppel case where there's no, nothing actually adverse report on it. Almost not many people know compared to 1MDB's case, right? But something closer to home based on your finding on the 1MDB case. Because this morning we heard from the Deputy Governor how the banks are under the watchful eyes of the regulator, Bank Negara. But how about the regulator itself? Do you think who will be watching them? And how can actually the roles be improved in protecting the ethics and integrity upfront. Because we know from the 1MDB's case, banks as well as regulators were named in certain allegations which can actually cast doubt over the integrity and ethic of the financial system as a whole.
Thank you, Puan. Difficult question, no? Huh? Bukan tak boleh jawab. No, I cannot answer. I think the topic of 1MDB ni is related to the ex-Prime Minister, I think the name, I think everybody fully aware who's the entity or individual involved. Dia very difficult question if you want to put straight away 1 campur 1, 2.
Oh, it doesn't have to be 2. 1 campur 1 berapa-berapa pun okey.
Kita pun 1 berapa-berapa. Okay, technically I think Bank Negara have put some compound in 2015. Why there's a bank tidak raise STR. So I think lesson learned from, it's not just the bank, the GLC, everybody, the auditor, and then the investment, foreign investment. I think at the end of the day, people talk about integrity, people talk about transparency. You will be measured. Certain individual will be in power for certain period. But after that, probably the one remain is whoever in the system later on. So technically, doing the right thing, follow the process, and then whoever make the decision, they have to face the music later on. But I think technically the process only deviation berlaku. I think let's talk about one point from the bank point of view. When the money be transferred for the first phase, go to Petro Saudi. I think the bank know already. The payment is supposed to be a joint venture. And then they know what is the reason, right? And then the deviation. So the starting point already some issue, regardless of whoever. Of course, you base on technically the regulator have given green light. But you have to put your concern. For me, I think the best is the regulator, the people within the system, put your concern. When people like us, from MACC, from the police, investigate, they will look at the trail. There's email, there's a justification, there's a reason why you follow through with the transaction. Okay, we have highlighted our concern. This Petro Saudi is having some issue. And then it's different from the actual investment that been agreed upon. So fine, let the party, whoever want to make the decision, face the issue later on. Because you don't know later on what is A, what is a B. Sometimes A can continue until 30 years. The reason for A investment or A decision can last long. But sometimes only after 3 years, 5 years. Now, just I quote from the, just for learning process. 5 years ago, 2018, 5 years ago lah kan, I'm the one, my division freeze one of the political party account. This year, I have frozen another political party account. So, I think to answer the moderator, I think people like us, the regulator, the enforcement, the people, whatever it is, do it properly, follow the process, document it.
Everyone in the chain then.
Then let them, whoever make decision, they have to see how they have to manage to explain to the enforcement later on. I think that's all good.
Okay, that would be a good answer, I think, for all the banks to make sure to record all the audit trail. Yeah. So when the time comes, then you know who does what and when, right? As long as we refer back to the documents. Okay. Then moving on to Mr. Hon. I think we talk about technology advancement. Then you also talk about chatbot as well as AI. But can the banks actually leverage on this technology advancement to fight back?
Oh, definitely, because we are seeing the same trend elsewhere, including people like Thailand, Indonesia. They're actually using AI or big data to find abnormal behavior in the internet. Why? Because human will not, there is a limitation on human to actually possibly verify and check every detail.
Yep.
So the value of human to come back and verify all the triggered alert, and then to actually do the necessary further investigation. So the combination of people, process, and technology is very crucial. Of course, there is an argument that, hey, can AI replace human? No, they don't. AI do their job where human are incapable in terms of big volume. You use AI to actually look into the millions transactions to identify abnormal behavior, and then you trigger and then investigate further. So by embracing AI, big data, that really actually help us to grow and handle more and transform the banking industry. I guess some of the fintech companies are doing it. In fact, it's even better. We see our banking industry are doing that so that we can actually have a more modern economy, and we can actually do more globalization transformation.
Okay, and the trend in Malaysia, is it going towards that? Is it already, has the work started?
Every now and then I hear Bank Negara actually issuing some of these queries, gathering some of the forums. I think it's a good sign. I'm lucky enough to actually also talk to other banks in elsewhere, because we actually have the chance to learn from elsewhere. And we start to realize that, hey, I think we are quite proud. Every time I'm from Malaysia, hey, Bank Negara have done a great job as far as internet banking transformation for banks are concerned. So I think this should be continued. Of course, they are taking it one step at a time and carefully. And that's the right thing to protect the rakyat. But at the end of the day, they are not close up. We actually, and Bank Negara every now and then organize gathering some information, gathering forums, so actually getting more information from the industry, from the end user, and from the technology player. I think that is a very good sign.
Yeah, okay. So the banks can actually leverage on the technology. Yeah,
that should
so
be
that
the way.
we can actually address the burnout by the IT teams as well,
Yeah.
right? For firefighting, constant firefighting.
True. Let's elevate the humans to do more meaningful strategies things than to some of these repetitive and not so value-added things. Let the AI do some of this job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And question that I have for Dr. Salahuddin. How does Cybersecurity Malaysia stay current on the latest threats and technologies in cybersecurity?
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, in Cybersecurity Malaysia, we always encourage our facility staff to go for professional certifications. Actually, part of our culture is that now our HR procedures, in order for you to be promoted or to get raised, you get to have a new certification. Every year you get to have new certification, or else you're stagnant. Yeah. So you have to. That's the benchmark. Okay. Also, we encourage people to increase their knowledge, to be competent, to be competitive, and then not just that. I think part of it how to measure the level of competency of the people, especially in the technical wing. Because we had in Cybersecurity, we have technical leaders and then generalist leaders. For the technical leaders, you need to have proper professional certifications, which is in order for you to climb up the ladder. That's the thing how we encourage people to keep current with the technology. That's one of the things.
That would be for the specialists only, or for everyone as a general knowledge?
That's on the technical. You're talking about technical,
okay.
or for everyone. Then we have we have our certification. Some certification is for the whole organization. Yeah. So from time to time, we do have online quizzes, online assessment. Okay. Or on the not on current technology, on the processes that we have. So that from time to time they have to know to keep their knowledge
up to date.
Up to date, in order to pass the assessment. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay, now anyone has any questions? We will open the questions to audience. Anybody? Yes.
Hello, my name is Azhar. I'm from ELMU. Just asking one question. You know, we heard this scam many times already over the years. And what is funny is, you know, the people who called it, you know, it seems like legit. I'm just want to ask the panels, what is telco doing into this? I mean, I'm not blaming them, but it seems someone is easy to hack into their network and blame as a valid number. So why is this happening actually? And for example, I also heard another case where there's a case where, you know, a hacker hacked into a procurement system. So what they do is they change the bank number and the name of the banks. So instead of, let's say ABC company, they will say ABC Enterprise in Berhad. Okay, this is just an example. So for banks, when they do create these accounts, do they actually counter into that? They you know, a company with a similar name, but then you add something a bit, so you know you confuse the people and so on. I'm not saying it's happening in Malaysia. It's happening all over the world, where people change the names and so on. So basically, I'm asking about two questions. One, what is TECO doing into all of this? Right? It seems like, you know, the system is being hacked all the time. Number two is, if for bank itself, when they create an account, how much they actually check into the validity of that person itself or the company, so that when there's a scam happening, the mule account can be stopped and so on. That's just my question actually.
It's all about the mule accounts, right?
No,
Yes,
I mean
mule accounts and
the preventive measures, because that's why this is happening actually. Yeah.
Mr. Hon, can I?
Yeah, sure.
hear some ideas?
It's an ongoing, continuous improvement which we are seeing in Malaysia as well as other countries, where every now and then, different countries, they have their different regulation or recommendation or best practices being introduced by the respective authority. In Malaysia, we have RMIT, the Risk Management of Information Technology from Bank Negara, and those are quite comprehensively being designed, or the guidelines from handling the people, the process and technology in order to make sure that the data that is being managed by the banks are secure. But nevertheless, data do not only leak out from in fact, banks, yes, there's some cases, but a lot of time, a lot of data leakage, not from banks, but from elsewhere, where you are registering with social media. You are, for some of the registrations to some of your supplier, and those are data that leak out. And all this information are available in the dark web that people can buy. So a lot of time, cyber criminal, before they design a case to scam you, they would pretend like they know you very well. And where do they get those data? Social media, dark web, and then from there they start design and create a very interesting and yet very urgent kind of scenario that you have to make decision by before 3 o'clock today. You have to transfer the money, or else your account will be freeze and investigator will look for you. So they make it very urgent. So I think the general public awareness is very crucial to know that how does a typical scam looks like when you receive a call, hey, how come there's a call from mobile phone asking me this, and it seems to be very urgent. And so these are the general knowledge that I'm sure the government are doing it. But every now and then, to my surprise, and probably to your surprise, some of these people who get scammed, some of them are professional people, lawyers, doctors who actually get scammed. I think they are also playing some emotional part of it to actually get you worried about it. That's number one. Number two is that I think even though you may be a lawyer, a doctor, a very highly educated people, but when it comes to cyber hygiene, they are still probably yet to be improved. For example, do not use the same password for everything. And do not use a password that easily being guessed. So these are the things that people actually need to be aware of, so that they reduce the chance and the risk. Data can be gathered everywhere. I do not want to say these are the bank's fraud. In fact, banks actually follow quite thoroughly and diligently on what is recommended, either from the Bank Negara or some of the best practices from either PC, IDSS, or or ISO 27000. Some of this actually very very. If you follow that, you have minimal chance to achieve being hacked. Thanks.
Dr. Salahuddin, do you want to add? Because in your presentation, you mentioned that there's no 100% sure,
Security.
right?
Yeah.
Security. How you want to link to that?
Yeah. So as Hon mentioned, when we talk about security, we talk about the people, process, and technology. Yeah. A lot of people think that technology alone will solve their problems. Yeah. But it's not. It's not that. You need to have the proper process, proper people, then the combination of these three. Yeah. Or else there's no such thing as 100% security. There's no such thing as 100% security, but you cannot even approach to that without these three components. Yeah. And then one more thing that I would like to emphasize here is about the compliance. Yeah. We might have a lot of guidelines in place. We have a lot of standards in place, but do you really comply to that? Okay. Do we have that? Like actually, we have an authority that go and do some compliance audits. Does the organization comply to this particular standard, such that a baseline standard, such that they will not be. It's very hard for people to hack them. Okay. But that's why our minister, we are from Kementerian Komunikasi and Digital. Our minister will be Fahmi Fazil. Talk about the setting up of cybersecurity commission, so that we have some authority that can do some compliance audit, so that this organization at least adhere to certain standards, baseline standards, such that so that we can make it better for us in Malaysia, especially the critical infrastructures. We are more prepared against cyber threats that we never know what's happening. We know for sure that it's there. It's going to hit us, whether we know it or not. Okay, all right. I think that's his thing.
Dr. Zamri, do you want to add any cases that you have investigated before and what we can learn from there?
Yang tu nanti lagi panjang cerita saya explain. But I just want to say two things lah. I think just now I talked about fraud triangle, and then just now from the audience asked about mail account. Two things: Pareto rule, 20% and 80%, 20-80% rule. So at the end of the day, there's no secure. Just now talking about there's no secure system, whatever it is. Important is for us to work together, multi-agency, private, public. I learned one thing just now: private, public, academia. Academia, yeah? Yes, okay. So I think the most important, use the skill from the private sector, facilitate and assist law enforcement like us to create the impact. Because whenever this group of people try to have something, a fraud committed, you have to understand, where is the deterrent? Proceed of crime, being charged in court. To charge is not straightforward. It's talking about evidence or intelligent prevention. That means intelligently you identify a problem, then you do it intelligently to get rid of this threat. Then only the perpetrator will put a handbrake, because they already calculated the risk. They know how much they're going to earn. Nobody for fun. There's somebody for fun. Like the hackers want to prove themselves, they hack through the system. When they already have the name, they will start to charge. But at the end of the day, how to cripple the syndicate, how to do this, that's why the analysis, we have to link back who are the people, the tipping off, the fraud, as I said, then this, we hit at the 20% cases, have an 80% impact. Then the prevention will work. But if you do the prevention, but actually the luxury, the temptation is there. Just be walking in front of you. You call, I will share if I got time. Give me about 3 weeks or 2 weeks, I will share. It's not just about people alone that be scammed by love scam. When I think from the audience talk about business email compromise. This talking about people very educated, very, very understanding the process, also been cheated. That's why I said the threat is not somehow you realize or you don't realize. That's why I think the threat to get rid, the prevention is one thing, but we have to work together. That means whenever MSCC adopted this multi-agency task force and then we are doing it, I think we have invited cyber recently for, we are working on something. You have to show 20% effort, 80% result. Then people will start to think twice when they want to do this thing. Oh, we hack the bank, I'll get caught. Then all the repercussion. Okay, all right.
Thank you. So I think on my side, I'm not sure whether what I've done, the little thing that we can do, I can consider myself lucky because I'm a banker. So when I receive a call, I will entertain just to understand the modus operandi. By doing so, I would know that what is actually the impact on the people on the street. Bankers may understand. The first instant, you would know this is actually a scam. I also believe that by doing that, I actually affect the productivity of that scammer, you know, because they will lose one income. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you. Maybe my question has been answered just now by the panelists, but the question I'm more interested on Mr. Han's slide on outbound activities. You're saying internal, we can do those controls, but when it comes to outbound activities, we don't have mechanism, or it's pretty much flexible out there. Can you share any experience, any jurisdictions or any markets that have done a good control to manage these outbound activities?
A lot of outbound activity nowadays, internet traffics are encrypted. You want to investigate in what are the activities go out, you need to actually decrypt it to actually understand what they are trying to talk about. Technically workable, but not a good idea because there is number one, a lot of things to be done to actually decrypt, and number two, probably it infringes your privacy, whereby you're looking into some of these things which probably someone who are not supposed to. So the best way is that, in fact, which is why I think Bank Negara is doing it. All this activity of, especially outbound, legitimate traffic, they need to be analyzed and to see the source, the communication, who are you talking to? Say, for example, there's an outbound activity, came from this machine, and you actually, that's why we use technologies now. Okay, typically this gentleman usually talk to that particular group of IP addresses. The time is from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. But today, at morning 2 o'clock, this machine also communicated with another IP address in Philippines. And obviously that guy is not, number one, I don't have customer in Philippines. Number two, that guy doesn't work at that time. So then, even though it's legitimate activity, but the pattern of behavior is abnormal, that's where you start investigating. Then you don't need to actually look into all the content of the communication, but you look at the general behavior and compare. Of course, humanly impossible to do every checking of every activity. That's why we strongly say that's where AI comes in to learn your pattern and then trigger, and that's where people come in to further investigate, say, hey, I found there's a traffic of your staff at this hour talking to a Philippine IP, and that is not a usual thing that we do, even though it is a legitimate ID, legitimate password, but the pattern is not normal. So which is why outbound traffic can be actually monitored to actually reduce. And that's why actually Bank Negara is doing that. Bank Negara is actually asking all the banks to review your logs. Not all activities are legitimate. I mean, not all legitimate activities are right. Right means that, legitimate means that according to the policy of the firewall, according to your computer policies, it can be done. But the pattern is not normal. That's why you need to review the logs and do some study about it and take action on it. I think actually Bank Negara have done the guidelines very clearly on that. The only thing is that, do the organization follow? Do it comply? That is the challenge usually. Yeah, thank you.
People risk, we call it.
Yeah.
People risk. So in the interest of time, we can only take one last question from the lady at the back, please.
Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to the respective panels and members of the floor. I am Akilah Kamarizaman from Bank Simpanan Nasional. So my question is basically, to what extent have regulators and enforcement agencies in Malaysia established effective frameworks for overseeing the use of AI in detecting these cybercrimes, frauds, or also preventing money laundering in the financial system? And what further measures can be taken to ensure the effectiveness of these frameworks in combating the ongoing threat of cybercrime in the industry?
Doctor, do you have answer for that? Do you want to comment on that? Are you aware of any framework in the
Unfortunately,
development?
we are not the law enforcement agencies.
Okay.
But maybe if I can address that, maybe I think the mostly is doing something on the framework of AI and cryptography, something like that. Okay, I think that among the academicians, among the researchers, they do have some initiative to look into that. Okay, but in terms of framework as a whole, I've not heard
From
about
the
it
policy
yet.
Okay.
Maybe the country can think of. Thank you for the input. Maybe we can bring this up to the higher authority to have a proper framework among the law enforcement agencies, maybe to look into this thing and how we can combat the AI with AI. With AI. Yeah.
Which AI? Mr. Hon, do you have any perspective on that?
I'm in no position to represent Bank Negara or all this government, although they say, hey, yes, we got a framework. But nevertheless, we overheard every now and then, because we do have friends around. They say, hey, the Bank Negara are actually looking into framework for cloud computing. So all the framework to actually assess what is a secure cloud and what is not, and what do if the banks want to adopt a cloud, what are the security measurements they need to put in place? This is what we heard about. I think AI is, I'm sure Bank Negara are doing something about it, but I think there has not been formally announced that, hey, the Bank Negara are doing this now, you need to comply with that. We are yet to hear that. We look forward for that, because I believe with the adoption of AI, our banks can actually do more, transformation can be better, and our economy will be better. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think I won't do any justice without asking Dato' Zamri for a final questions or any words of advice to the banks with regards to protecting ethics and integrity upfront. Last words, any wisdom?
I
Any
think
advice to the
I
banks,
also
yeah?
follow what Mr. Hon, but even though I not really 100% agreed, because Mr. Hon, right? Always
Hon.
Bank Negara. But I think he's trying to be polite based on the regulator punya point of view. But I think it works both ways. The practitioner know more in the system, day to day, they know the loophole. So before Bank Negara can have the system in place, like us, when you go on the ground, like when you mentioned about when to use the username, ID, right, outbound. I have a case. I'm a general manager in Telecom, chief integrity officer. I've been seconded to Telecom. I did do one case. There's a guy borrow, or you know the what they call this particular username and access code. He accessed on behalf of his colleague. Then he withdraw about few million product from the store and finally sell to the vendor. It's just simple like that. So technically, the feedback should come from the practitioner, from people on the ground, then before the policy can be made. Not just from the policy. Sometimes things work in the foreign country, in US, Europe, may not work here. Because it's not the same issue, and then not the same situation. In foreign jurisdiction, probably when you talk about password, ID is something that they won't share. But in Malaysia, even the director level, the PA know everything. The PA is actually approving everything. So technically, what I'm saying, that's number one. Number two, I think, try to have we call it the integrity unit. Because previously you talk about risk, the threat, risk issue. The risk is talking about. After that, it moved from corruption risk. Then you can merge this corruption risk assessment, something like that. Now it's coming on ESG, environment, social, and governance. So if you have this governance unit, a lot of things can ease you to advise in terms of law enforcement punya law, dealing with enforcement, and dealing with what we call agency itself. Take into example the whistleblower thing. Then you know how to address give policy. They can advise. A lot of things this group can handle. Before, like for example, my Deputy Chief Commissioner mentioned about the DI process. The DI process is very critical. If you want to have the DI process, same like enforcement gathering evidence, it takes years. So that's why sometimes you identify the issue, you address it straight away, because you base on the policy approved by the board. And sometimes you have a policy by the bank and so on. So once they have that, it's considered the law in the company. So once they breach that, you can take the action. So I think my advice is to have a group of integrity in the company. Corporate liability, the other thing. Be careful. Because I think MACC try to be tactical when we address this corporate liability issue. But if we want to just go and implement, even though 2 years grace period have been given, we only charge for one case, Pristine Offshore. I think two years ago, if I'm not mistaken, also done by my team. But if we go all out, this corporate liability, the organization can be held liable when the employee commit. The defense is adequate measure. Adequate measure, if you talk about the law in UK, in US, FCPA, it's not merely you can have a policy in place. It's talking about effectiveness, how you implement the policy. If we go, I believe the situation, the evolution will happen, that enforcement will go after the commercial organization.
Okay, so
I'm not sure when, but if we are targeted to send the message, now it's talking about not the issue, now it's more individual.
yeah.
But if let's say suddenly, I don't know, Dato' Idris, my colleague is here also, talking about going the commercial organization. For example, we can have a case with, I don't know, one bank. Then suddenly the employee commits some issue. Then because of the issue, the risk being investigated, also there's a risk. The investigation risk. Then the value of the bank, the share price, I'm not sure, the share, the reputation, the confidence level of people, the client and so on. So because of that employee, we will start to go after what you have in your bank. How you implement top down, the trust element there, top management commitment, risk management handling, all those things.
So Dr. Zamri, if I can conclude, so it's not just by having the policy, you must also have it in form and substance to address and to protect ethics and integrity upfront. So I think we have come to the end of the session. So it is our hope that this collaboration and sharing of knowledge and experience will actually can create a future where ethics and integrity can take center stage in all business dealings. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you to all panelists and the moderator for the insightful session just now. Let us invite Puan Ratna Syairah Kamaldin, Executive Director AIBIM, to hand over the memento to panelists and moderator. Please welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please be at the center of the stage for a photography session. Thank you once again to the moderator and panelists, and also to Puan Ratna Syairah Kamaluddin, Executive Director, AIBIM. The panelists and moderator may return to your seat. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the inaugural AIBIM Integrity Year 2023 Town Hall session. On behalf of AIBIM and ELMU Group, we hope that this collaboration will instill better understanding and importance of integrity and hence spurs the future growth of Islamic finance. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to invite all guests to continue having their refreshments prepared at the foyer area. Take good care, and we look forward to seeing you next time. My name is Zamir Asfar. Thank you. Assalamualaikum and goodbye.